So, day three. Continuing on the story I was telling you earlier, after the New York incident, it was funny because initially there it had caused some friction, and then when I pulled away from her, she actually was very apologetic and even had wanted to last minute fly me to New York, which would have been expensive, but I declined because I felt it was absurd at that point. But then we moved on, and we had our birthdays in September. Our birthdays are very close together, which was very nice, and we had a lovely time. We went to a play and some nice shows, and all through the month of like into the fall and leading up to Christmas, pretty much everything was tranquil. And I think this goes back to what a lot of guys know about that. Your relationship will be fine leading up to Christmas, and throughout that period, I was very generous. And what I mean by that is that, I'm sort of people who have been in my life in the past, I've always had to save them. This girl I didn't need to, but I found a reason to do so anyway. Refurnishing parts of her house and, changing things around, and even helped her fix an apartment up in the basement. And we opened an Airbnb business, which she started making like $1,000 a month on, and I didn't want anything for it. I know it sounds like a simp move, but as men, we invest in our relationships. It's funny how we as men will come along and we think, oh yes, I'm going to invest my time and my energy into this thing, into this relationship, and they seem to like it when you do it. They really do. But it's almost like in the aftermath, they're like, why are you doing all this for me? And it actually, to be perfectly honest, it lowers their attraction. I don't know, with all the women I've ever been with, even this most recent one, who is, in my estimation, very high quality woman, they all loved the efforts initially, but it ultimately didn't matter. To quote Tom Likas, and of course this is an expression which may not be his, but I've heard Tom use a lot, and that's no good deed goes unpunished. So as I said, we moved towards Christmas time, and we actually had even booked a holiday to go to the Caribbean right after Christmas. And so Christmas came, and there was a little bit of friction getting together with her family and mine, because I have older sons, and her sons were they had a little bit of friction together, just because, preteen kids are a little rangy. And so I'm not saying that ended the relationship, but it didn't help that there was some friction between the two. And her sons were a little bit deficient from the standpoint that, it's nature versus nurture, right? Their father was a bit of a malcontent, and their case in point, as Tom Likas says, at one time, he really did it for her, and he was kind of a loser and a ne'er-do-well. And here I was, responsible, capable, attentive, and loving too. I mean, throughout this period, the sex continued to be fantastic. I'm not going to blow my own horn, but I think I'm a pretty decent performer, so maybe, she had often maintained that it was never as good as with me, so, there could have been some selfishness in there on her part just to enjoy that. I enjoyed it too, right? But, so, I gave her a ton of presents over Christmas, and she gave me a couple things, but, as I'd often said to her, I said, it's not my fault that I'm Superman. And, my relative cost to do a lot of things I did was low. Of course, there was some time involved, but, the kind of business I'm in, it just made it easy for me to really, fill her life with bounty and blessing. So, Christmas came and went, and then we went to the Caribbean for just after Christmas to go with her over New Year's. And it was a great trip. She, we had a nice resort. The weather was beautiful the whole time. We made love every night, enjoyed the resort, enjoyed the pools, hung out together as best friends would. The beauty of that first when the first 6 months of a relationship with a woman is that it's everything you wish it would stay to be, meaning that, you have someone who's your confidant, your friend, she's your sexual partner, you have this real close bond. But the problem is that it's almost too much for them to handle long term. I heard an interview the other day with Rollo Tomasi, and he's the author of The Rational Male, and he was talking to the chap from the Entrepreneurs with Cars channel, and he was telling a story about how colleagues of his, most of them have shitty marriages, but his one friend who has a great marriage is also a pretty high-powered executive. So he's a top 1% male, but he's not there half the time. And because of that distance, really makes a difference. So one thing to note, guys, if you're in a relationship now and you think it's great, you must create a way where you have distance. You must be scarce, because otherwise your high interest, you will put it on her, but and she'll like it for a short period of time, but she will. It's great. It's that old expression that familiarity breeds contempt. And in the case of a woman, that contempt is translated into, behavior which declines until ultimately she leaves or kicks you out. So it's important to know. But going back to that trip, we had a fantastic time, and it was over New Year's, so there's a big spread. I bought her a really fancy dress for the ball, and she was such a hot piece of ass, and just a beautiful woman, and her personality was so delightful. And the biggest part of all this is that I'm a guy who takes a lot of videos, and I have videos from all these things, and if I look at them now, it will just tear me up. So, I'll talk about the videos a little bit later and how they affected, or as we pull towards the end of the relationship. But we had just a spectacular time. Then we returned. It was the dead of winter, and things got a little bit rocky there for a bit. Oftentimes you'll read stories about how, a guy goes on vacation with his girlfriend, everything's fine, it's wonderful and lovely. You can go online, there's a guy named Chris Camwell who has a channel called Develop Attraction. And he tells a story about, how a woman will just go silent for no apparent reason. It's absolutely boggling when you think about it. And, it may very well be rooted in evolution or something. It's almost like she has to do it because she's creating a separation in you. And it's almost instinctive with her. It's very odd. And again, men and women, we're so different. And, the biggest problem we men make in regard to relationships is we're always thinking that the woman is valuing time the way we do, valuing effort the way we do, and it's just not the case. And, and maybe, it's funny. You think about, every woman can tell the story about the asshole in her life. And the point is she can tell the story. So I think if you can find that sweet spot where you're that asshole who doesn't give a shit but still wants to spend time with her, when you come to terms with the fact that you can't really ever tell a woman that you love her because she'll like it in that moment, but afterwards it actually lowers her attraction for you. And it's, some women will hear what I'm saying right now and they'll dispute it, but I've lived it. I've watched several guys live it, and women just love a man who's distant. And those alpha males in Hollywood. George Clooney, forever he wouldn't settle down with any one woman, right? And who knows if he's even going to settle down with the woman he's with now, long term. I think he's with her more as because she's big in world legal proceedings, and he's sort of a humanitarian. Who knows? But even guys like Brad Pitt, he left to be with Angelina Jolie, and you know, the bottom line is whether he stayed with Angelina or whether he went with Angelina or he'd stayed with Jennifer Aniston, I think either way he would have been single, because it's just our modern world. How wonderful in the olden days when you could, you got on the wagon and you went out into the wilderness to carve out your piece of it, and a woman depended upon you. She needed you. She, you were everything to her, and that's where the devotion came from. Not only was a devotion to you that was, a manifestation of how she felt, but it was because of the circumstances. And in today's world, women don't need us. I mean, when a woman can go and get, on the low end, a woman can get social assistance and have the government be her husband, to the high end where you have women who are executives. In the case of this young lady that I was with, she's an executive. She doesn't need a man for anything. All she needs a man for is emotional support. And, you have to answer to those things that she's going to need to make her want to stay. So it's really an interesting thing to think about. Anyway, we're at 11 minutes now, and I've told you a little bit more of my story. Day 3, she did actually text me this morning and simply to say I had sent her a text at the end, and she sent a text saying, "Please don't text me anymore." And she said, "I don't want to receive text from you anymore." So, I don't consider that to be contact. So the point is that, and not in a mean way, she's a very, very kind woman, but the reality is that she does have a moral issue to overcome, because I know that, we've been apart now for, I'm going to say the relationship's been in crisis for about a month, and but hardcore out the door these last 2 weeks. And, she hopped on a dating site, and now her profile's not up, so I'm sure she has a dude lined up. And it's depressing for sure, but I'm an awesome man, and, well, I'm pretty sure that the next guy will fuck up just as much. So it's not that here's the thing. I mean, I can go out and get other women, and I'm not saying I won't myself. I have some... Whoops. I have some lined up, and I will date. But this one in particular was, as women go, as my eyes are open now, fully, this one was top of the pile, and I really cared for her. Anyway, stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Thanks, guys.